What do you think of this draft?
I don't think it's as bad as everybody's saying it is. I mean, you think back to, you go back to the 2020 draft, and everyone was saying that 2020 draft was a bad draft. And now this playoffs, we were saying Anthony Edwards is going to be the face of the league. So Anthony Edwards wasn't the consensus number one pick in that draft. And now we look and he has his team playing in the Western Conference Finals with a chance to go to the finals to compete for a championship. So I don't think it's as bad as it is. I mean, you look at where the Spurs are and how the Spurs have traditionally built their teams. You look at they have the generational talent in Wemby, and if they're able to get a guy that I believe is really, really talented and Stephon Castle to go along with that, I mean, that could be a great situation in 5, 10 years from now. So I don't think it's as bad as everyone says it is. I do think the star power may lack, but we haven't really seen a star come into the league and be dominant in a while. I know Wemby was a star coming into the league, but team wasn't good. So I think this year you have to see. I think Mattis Buzelis is a kid that is better than what people know just because he did not go to college. So we didn't see Mattis Buzelis play at the Division I level, playing in March Madness. We didn't get the feel of his game, but all the hype surrounding Cooper Flag, and I know it was a couple years ago, but I mean, I watched with my eyes. I called a game, and Mattis Buzelis made Cooper Flag look like a high school kid. So when they both were in high school just 2 years ago. So I think Mattis Buzelis is a guy that could develop into a really good player. So I'm not as down on it as a lot of people, but I mean, it's not as great as I say like the Kobe draft or the OB03 draft or anything like that.
The last time that we got a chance to work together over at Stadium, you kind of broke down Zach Edey as a pro, and you talked about him versus is Clingan. What do you think now that you've had an opportunity to really crunch the tape on both of those guys? How do you feel about them as prospects?
No, I still feel the same way we talked about. I think Clingan, I guess I'll start with Clingan because I think he's going to be a really good player. I think he's extremely athletic for his size. He runs the floor like a gazelle. He can protect the rim. I mean, he can block shots. He's an elite rim protector. I mean, he's going to go up there. He's going to protect the rim. I mean, he's proven he can kind of knock it down in some of the draft workouts. I still don't think he'll shoot it much from deep, but I still am, call me old school, but I'm still in the fashion of you play against somebody, it's a head-to-head matchup, it's a big-time game on a national stage, and if you dominate that person, I feel like you're the better player. And you see Zach Edey in that national championship played 39 minutes. His endurance was a question. I mean, that goes out of the window. And then he gives Clingan 40 and 11. And you think about what Draymond Green tweeted after that game, he gave large credit to UConn's backup and Johnson. Samson Johnson came off the bench and why UConn was able to pull away with that win. He said it was largely because Clingan was on the bench, basically. And that's what kind of wore out Zach Edey. But I think they're both going to be really good pros. I think Zach is going to be a lot better than what people are thinking he's going to be. I think basketball is starting to take a shift back to kind of you can play with the big again. I think that's kind of where the game is going to go. I'm not saying it's going to change from all threes, but I think a big man is going to be necessary for teams going forward. So I think Zach
Why
is a
do you
guy
think
to come
that?
in.
Why do you think it's changing, and why do you think that's going to be true?
You look at the first round this year, I think the first round, it may be 11 centers going in the first round. So I think if you look at the numbers wise, if a third of the draft is centers, it's kind of saying that the draft is kind of shifting back to that way. And it wasn't, you couldn't say that a couple years ago. You look at the top 5, top 10, they're maybe 3, 4, 7-footers getting drafted. So I think even you talk about Clingan's 7 too. So the big man is starting to be valued again, I believe, like it once was, whether it's just being a rebounder or being a rim protector or being a ball screen action or even being that protective ball screen action defensively. So I think Zach will be a guy with his attitude, with his work ethic, with his determination, he could be a really good pro.
Do you think that he has enough of a base as a perimeter player that he can move outside the paint and even if we're just talking mid-range stuff, that he can make himself more of a weapon that way?
Yeah, I've been in the gym with Zach. I mean, he can shoot the ball. He can make shots from deep. I think he showed it at the combine. He can make shots. You see, and it's not even that the ball is going in for him. You look at his form. It's not forcing it up there. It doesn't look like it hurts. It doesn't look like he's struggling to shoot it. He got elbow high, got good follow through, got good release, high follow through. So I think he has the ability to make shots, but I don't think necessarily you have to. I don't think you have to be a guy that comes in and makes threes. I mean, you look around the league, you look at centers, everyone isn't shooting threes. I mean, it's valued. I mean, a guy like Porzingis is definitely valued, but you have spots where a guy that can protect the rim, a guy that can run the floor, a guy that can guard a ball screen, a guy, because if you can control the glass, that puts you in the game. And you look at maybe Zach playing with the Lakers, you look at what LeBron has traditionally had in the big man. You look at Miles Goff, you look at Tristan Thompson, you look at the guys he's played with that's brought in LeBron's success has been guys that can set a good ball screen, guys that can rebound, guys that's going offensive rebound, guys that can defensive rebound, big bodies that don't care about having the ball. And I think Zach Edey can play whatever role that you put him in.
I also think it's different, too, where a lot of rebounds are being grabbed now. Because with the increase in volume three-point shooting, your perimeter players' rebounding ability matters more than ever. If you watch the kind of things, we always bring up Drew Holiday, we bring up Derek White, we bring up the guys who can get the long rebounds and get you started. If a lot of threes are going to be shot, that means a lot of these big guys in close to the basket, that rebound isn't theirs to grab as much as it was.
And that's what I said. And that's what I continuously say about Zach Edey is that you look at, I played with a guy, Isaac Haas. Isaac Haas was 7'2". Isaac Haas was 320 pounds. And if that rebound, Matt Painter used to have a phrase. He would say, rebound outside of your area. And if you can't rebound outside of your area, you can't play at the next level. And Isaac Haas really struggled to rebound outside of his area. If that basketball didn't come right to him, he couldn't go block to get it. But you see the way Zach Edey chases down offensive rebounds, the tip backs he has, his ability to go and get it. That there is why you just hit it the nail on the head. That there is why I think Zach Edey is different from other bigs that have been his size. Because essentially I play with Isaac. Isaac is a guy that he just physically, not that he didn't want to, but physically when that ball went up, he wasn't quick enough to get to the other side. His feet were heavy. But with Zach, you look at his history playing hockey, the different sports he's able to do.
You think he's quick enough?
Oh yeah, Zach. I mean, you don't get as many. I mean, you look at his numbers because the college game changed as well, and the defensive rebounding is still the same out of your area. He averaged 13 rebounds, so it's not like you go back to Isaac Haas. Like I said, Isaac Haas averaged maybe 6-7 rebounds, and the game was changing. Those long rebounds mattered. Vince Edwards, Biggie Swanigan, Carson Edwards, those guys came in and cleaned up the glass. But Zach Edey, when that ball went up, offensively or defensively, averaging 6 offensive rebounds, those not just coming to your area. He was going to get them. So I think he's a guy that he can go rebound with the best of them. Because you look at Clingan's numbers rebounding-wise, Zach's numbers rebounding-wise, if we're talking about quickness to go get the rebound.
I'm just looking at quickness. I'm not looking at rebounding numbers. I'm just looking at their feet.
Oh no, I'm looking at rebounding. I'm looking at quickness. I'm looking at the ability to go get the ball. I'm looking at the want to go get the ball, the physicality that you need to have at the next level to be a high level rebounder, and the pure desire to rebound. I mean, Zach is that type of guy. I can remember when Caleb Swanigan came into Purdue, his only goal that he knew was going to get him to the next level. I remember him telling me, if I'm a good rebounder, if I average 10 rebounds a game, that's going to be my key to the next level. Caleb was able to do that. He showed it, and he was a first-round draft pick. But I think Zach's ability to go and get a rebound, his quickness when that ball goes up off the rim, and his second jump being that size, I think is pretty impressive.
Rapheal, what do you think of the Bulls making the move for Josh Giddy? Like, what do you think of him as a player? Where do you think he can get better, and where do you think he can be helpful?
I think he's really talented. I think he can be helpful in the sense of an athletic wing that can make a shot. I mean, he's a larger wing. He can guard multiple positions. He's a high IQ player. I think he's a guy that can come in, and he doesn't necessarily need 10 dribbles to make a move. He doesn't necessarily need 15 shots to get you 16 points. You know what I mean? He doesn't need a lot to produce, and he's going to produce in multiple facets, not a one-faceted guy. So, I mean, I always like the thought of going to get high IQ players that can make shots, that can guard multiple positions. I think that's where the game is. I think you look at what New York went and did with Michael Bridges, a two-way guy, a wing that can guard multiple positions. He can make shots. He doesn't need much offensively. I think those guys, I mean, you look at Scotty Barnes and his value up there with the Raptors, his new contract. I think those guys at this stage in the game are really, really valuable.
When we start talking about this year's draft, and you mentioned a couple players at the top, regardless of position, regardless of fit, give me 2 or 3 players that you're excited about what they could do at the next level.
I really like Stephon Castle. I think Stephon Castle should be a top 5 pick. I think you get him with the Spurs at 4, and he's able to develop like we've seen the Spurs do, develop talent. And because you go back, and I know he was off the ball at UConn, but Stephon Castle came out of high school as the #1 point guard in the country. So he showed he can play the point. He wants to play the point, but then at UConn, he showed he can play the 2, he can play the 3, he can get in ball screen action. He's a really, really talented player at 6'5", 6'6". He can guard the 1 and the 2. He doesn't turn it over much. He can make shots from deep. He can finish at the rim. I'm really excited for him. I mean, outside of Zach, I'm excited for Zach Edey, but outside of Zach Edey, you look at a guy in Mattis Buzelis where with Mattis Buzelis, he was a senior in high school before he decided to go to the non-traditional route, not attend college. He was looked at as the projected 2024 #1 pick. He was in that conversation. That's why when you hear him talk about Risa Shea, he says he doesn't want to see me, he doesn't want to check up with me, I believe him because I've seen him go up against those high-level guys at those Nike camps, at those at all of the events, though, whether they were private or whether they were known, you see those guys match up. And I'm telling you, Mattis Buzelis, 9 times out of 10, he was one of the better players on the floor. And then also being on the team, he's a guy that he can rebound, he can make a shot, he can play in the post, he can do a lot of different things where he won't be one-faceted.
We had a conversation on our podcast recently with regarding Cody Williams, the small forward out of Colorado, and the guy's got some NBA bloodlines and some at a very, very thin frame. Do you think that Cody Williams will be able to fill out? I don't know if he's going to be as big as his brother, but I just wonder if you think something more than this sort of spindly, spidery guy he is now.
No, I don't know if he'd be the size of his brother. That may be asking a bunch, but I think he fills out. I think he fills out his frame. I don't think he has to get too big. I mean, you look at guys around the league. Just because he's on the top of my head right now, Michael Bridges isn't the largest guy, but he's played 474 consecutive games. So I think as long as he's functionally strong, as long as he could take the beating of the season and the duration of it and stay in the gym and kind of fill out his frame, I mean, the easiest guy to look at, you look at KD. I mean, Kevin Durant's not the biggest guy in the world. So I think when you look at Cody Williams, again, I think he's that prototypical NBA guy right now. Like everyone's saying this draft is weak, but what you see in this draft is a lot of 6'7", 6'8" guys that can guard 1 through 4, that can make shots from perimeter. And you look at Boston right now, defensively, that's what you need to match up with teams like that. Like you look at when
guys that can switch.
Guys that can switch, guys that can keep Jason Tatum out of the lane, guys that can switch on Jaylen Brown, keep him out of the lane, but then they can also switch on Drew Holiday. And you look at a guy like Cody Williams, he's proven to do that. And he may not come in and be a generational talent or a guy that's going to be a perennial all-star, but he could play. I think Cody Williams is a guy that played 10, 12 years in the league because of his intangibles and his size and his length.
I feel like the little secret that I had in watching college basketball is now everyone knows it. I want Dalton Knecht to be a Bull, but I don't think that he's going to be anywhere near where the Bulls are drafting. I'd love to know what your notes are on Dalton Knecht.
I really like Dalton Knecht. I love Dalton Knecht. I mean, he's a guy that can just flat out score the basketball. And I love guys that don't need much to score. I mean, one dribble pull up, he can get to the basket on a straight line drive, but his ability to make shots is high level. At 6'5", on the wing, being able to, whether if it's coming off a pin down, coming off a screen, floppy action, or being a guy that's just a floor spacer. I mean, you get him around guys like DeRozan and guys that can make plays off of the bounce, you're not necessarily going to leave him once he proves that he can make it at this level. But I think Dalton Knecht is a guy that defensively, I think it's going to need to come along for him. I think if I had to say something that I kind of may be concerned on a wing for him, because he could be, some guys, they struggle to guard their position. And I think That's the one thing I would say. But offensively, and when it comes to shooting the basketball, making a shot, and having the confidence to take a big one, I think Dalton Knecht is that guy.
Rapheal, this was fun, man. Thanks so much for being available.